I was like, fuck, this is actually worthy of a podcast episode, or at least a little bit of a mic drop. Or no mic drop, because I fucking didn't connect my mic. Hello, and welcome to the Weeder Life podcast. I'm your host, Erica Weederlight, and I am the CEO and founder of Weederlight. I help humans who feel inadequate, broken, self-conscious, and shamed around their sexuality to reclaim their aliveness, their power, and to have a renewed relationship to pleasure while preparing themselves to feel hella confident to date others and themselves. AKA, I'm guiding people to live their #best lives. I have to give you a fair warning. I do unfortunately swear like a drunken sailor, so if you do have little ones by you, just be sure to pop in some earbuds. Alright friends, let's buckle up and let's rock it to this week's episode. Ooh, my friend, my good pal. Let me tell you something. This morning, I woke up and I was in a cave of podcasts and I was channeling and jiving and feeling it, and it was raw and honest and I was like, that was hot. And that was timely for me. Fuck yeah. Here we go. And then I was like, yes. And then I was like, fuck, because I didn't record with my microphone. I was recording this like hot damn channeled fire episode, but I was recording into the computer audio versus the mic. And why I'm telling you this, not only to bitch, even though I had to work through it, I was like, I'm so pissed, I'm so upset. Like I had to work through my feels. But I wanted to, I was like, fuck, this is actually worthy of a podcast episode, or at least a little bit of a mic drop. Or no mic drop, because I fucking didn't connect my mic. But what I was like, oh, I'm so pissed, I'm so annoyed, I'm so frustrated. Great, hot, feel your feelings. But what was interesting, the lesson in this was I was like, listen, actually a few things. More spaciousness, and this is actually what I was talking about in the podcast I was recording before, was I was talking about it, letting it be easy. And I know I found, I've talked about this before in the podcast, like I've worked on this for years, and I don't know if this resonates with you, but there's a story in so many of us that like, it's not safe for it to be easy. It's not safe for it to be good. We have fears and we have stories around that. And for me, how that manifests sometimes is I scrunch so much of my time. And I was telling some of my pod members, one of my groups that I teach yesterday, how this comes up for me is there's a old worthiness story, and that's in the past why I've overworked, right? Like I've overcompensated because there was a story in there like, hey E, you're not worthy, so you have to overwork. And God bless, thank God I've worked through a lot of that. But of course there's still residue that comes up around that, right? And I do want to normalize, and again, I'm going to refer to the Phantom podcast that I recorded earlier, but I said that in there as well, that I want to normalize that like we can work through so much, and healing is not linear. And there's no shade, there's no shame, there's no tea, there's no shade, there's no pink lemonade. If stuff comes back up, like that's natural, that's normal for it to come back up in a new way. And for me in this new chapter, right, like I've worked so much on my worthiness and my deservingness, like holy shit, I have come so far. And in this new season, how I'm noticing it is I'm overbooking my time, and I'm overbooking my time for various reasons. There's some personal stuff going on, and so I'm like, ooh, I'm being a little avoidant. But in regards to the worthiness, I'm overbooking my time, I noticed, because there's a worthiness thing, right? Like, oh yeah, let me work and let me hustle and blah, blah, blah. Like there's a little like, whoa, honey, let's soothe that nervous system, baby girl. Like there's some of that going on. There's some of that like frenetic, like wild energy. And so first and foremost, today I noticed like, okay, honey doll, You, my friend, I love you. But isn't it funny you just did a podcast episode on ease, and you are not creating ease within your day. Like, yeah, you're living ease in some ways, but you're creating a structure, you're creating a day, you're creating a container that does not feel easy. That feels very tight and compressed and stressful. And again, nuance. Sometimes we always can't create, we have situations that we have to honor and work and But I was noticing, like, where I could control, I was like, oh, okay, I'm cutting myself off and I'm harming myself, right? So that was number one. I was like, okay, I'm not giving myself a moment to breathe. So I'm talking about ease and pleasure. Honey, you can't even take a breath. So that was number one. But the big dog that I noticed with this LOL podcast recording was giving my power away. Because this is no one's fault, but I noticed I kept asking my partner, what should I do? Should I record it now? Should I record it later? And I knew what to do. And this is something I've been really working on big time in the last 6 months, is I notice where I want to rip out of my body and give my power to other people. I knew intuitively so hard exactly when to record the podcast. It was during this time, by the way. It was during this window. And I was like, let me just, like, I intuitively knew. My intuition was clear. It was like, don't do it. Hey, babe, don't do it. Don't do it. And I didn't want to slow down and listen. Like, it actually wasn't, it was pretty loud too, my intuition. So some lessons here, right, are slowing down to slay. Like my friend Leora says that. Slow down to slay. Leora of Goddess on the Go. Also listening to myself and stop giving my power away. I knew, and such a silly example of, like, this is my intuition said to record the podcast then, but it's a good lesson, right? Because, yeah, this is a silly podcast episode, but it's important. And I was like, fuck, I know. I need to listen more. And there's so much available there. And we could talk about intuition on a whole episode. And the last thing, with the giving our power away, I actually could do probably a whole shtick on this, but I do want to sashay into what we were originally here for today. But the giving our power away thing has been a really interesting journey for me. I am a recovering, but honestly, still, it's very present in my life still, people pleaser, on people's maps, wanting to make sure everyone's okay and this and that. And it's been a really interesting journey of me getting back to myself and still wishing everyone the best and doing what I can to be accommodating, but to stand in my own truth. And I was noticing as I was thinking about this episode this morning and the aftermath of me wanting to, like, what should I do? What should I do? Asking a million people. It's like, Erica, you know what to do. Is I've noticed a pattern within myself as a people pleaser to really be, and this is, there's a lot of shadow in this because it rips us out of our body, but there are, I've gained gifts from being so conscious of others. But I noticed, scanning back in my history, I'm going to make an example. Pretend a family member or a friend says something rude or inappropriate or whatever. I would notice myself, instead of standing in my power, standing in my truth, letting them do their thing because they are their own autonomous being, like, that's them. I noticed in the past I would jump onto their map, and if we were with other people, I'd be like, like, wanting to make it okay, wanting to soothe. And it's been such an interesting journey reclaiming myself and not doing that for others. First of all, I'm robbing them of their experience. Like, that's their experience. But also coming back to myself, that I don't need to jump on others' maps. And it's been a very wild and interesting process. And also, as we're recording right now, actually, a few things have been coming up, right? Like, as I'm recording, and you know me, I'm going ADHD, and I don't know if we're even going to go to the topic that we were going to go to today, but follow my ADHD, follow my intuition. It's part intuition. is as I'm recording this episode, again, I still feel the constraints of time, right? As I talked to you about before, like I have this, and then I have this, and then I have this. And I'm hearing some noise outside. And I'm like, fuck, is this going to ruin the recording? Da, 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 da. And it's building so much stress in my body and in my system. And again, sometimes we just can't do anything about those situations, right? Like some things, you know the deal with the nuance. Like sometimes it is what it is. But I do want to voice again the thing that I talked about with the letting it be easy, right? The podcast, the Phantom podcast. Letting it be easy, not only in your experiences, but also I am not creating ease. And I'm noticing that I'm not creating ease. And here's what happens when we don't create ease. Chronic resentment, chronic frustration. Right now I'm feeling more accessible to irritability, right? Because I'm like, because I'm so contracted and so constrained on time that there's not room to flow. And if it's not perfect, which I feel the irritability and I'm not thriving. And again, nuance. Sometimes we just are irritable. Sometimes situations call for that, But within what I can control, within my power, I'm noticing the ways that I'm creating constraints. Does that make sense? Like, does that make sense? But you know what I mean? Like, it's powerful to notice, and this is what I was talking about before. It's powerful to notice how our subconscious kind of creates these patterns. So not only is this unworthy wound for so many of us, it may show up as overworking or over this or over that. You know, for me, like I said, for a long time it was overworking, and it's coming up a little flavor now. I healed a lot of it, but it's still, I'm like, oh, there it is again. But not only is this unworthiness thing coming up as overworking, overcompensating, hustling, making it hard, finding the wrongness. I how do I say? I easily can identify that, right? I'm like, oh, there's that pattern. There it is. And how interesting today when I took a deep beat, toot, I was like, oh shit. Like this pattern, my subconscious kind of, how interesting, right? That I'm also noticing that it's coming out in a way of I'm really not allowing myself ease because I'm really backing myself up against a wall of no space for rest, no space for thriving. So again, we just unpacked a lot, right? We're talking about giving our power away. We're talking about people pleasing. We're talking about spaciousness. And again, something I do want to highlight is this journey is this journey. This work is work. So you will come light years. I was talking to a client last week and they're like, I'm so fucking frustrated, right? Like I've done so much work and shouldn't I be here, and here? And I'm like, listen, please hold. Like, can we celebrate the growth, who you've become, who you've stepped into? And they're like, yeah, no, it's kind of wild. Like all the changes that I've made. I'm like, right. We have to celebrate that. We have to like praise that. We have to, yes, jump it into the ethers. And like I said, healing isn't linear. There's seasons and there's cycles and there's residue. And I know for me, I have the transformation I've made around my worthiness, around my deserving is fucking crazy. And there may always be a piece there. There may not. I'm not claiming that shit. There may not, but there's some residue in this season. I have a lot going on, not only in my business, but truly in my personal life. There is so much deep unearthing in my personal life. It makes sense. You know what I mean? I'm like, okay, of course old stuff is coming up. It's coming up and I'm holding it with love and I'm holding it for healing. So I just wanted to voice those 4 points because I think that's important, right? There's a lot of shame sometimes in this community. Like, fuck, it should look like this. My journey should look like this. I'm wrong. And it's like, no, I want to normalize the journey, that it's not just a straight and narrow line. It's all of it. It's nuanced. It's this, it's that. And sometimes as frustrating as that is, For me, that's why it's attractive. It gives me permission to be a person, because I'm about to get woo and spiritual on you. Like, I do believe we are like divine beings having a human experience, but we are human. We are, that's part of it. I could go on a tangent, but I won't, because we got things to do. We got things to talk about. So what I was talking about earlier, again, LOL, hashtag phantom episode, was this wrongness, right? That's coming up right now for me. And I'm noticing it because I'm like, why the fuck am I overbooking myself so hard? I'm like, okay. Also, hashtag growth, that I'm noticing these things. In the past, years ago, I would have just had no awareness. And now I'm like, okay, cutie, what's going on? I mean, I know what's going on, but I'm like, okay, dokie, this is how we're holding and we're handling it. Cute. Okay, can we pick something else? And I had, a few days ago, I had one of my groups that I teach, right? You know me, I do public speaking. I have my one-on-ones, which I am opening up like literally not even a handful, like a sprinkling of spots for my one-on-one, which we'll talk about, and my group. And I'm also reopening a new group, so keep your eyes peeled for that bad boy. And you could get all that info below, or you could shoot me a line at info@wethelight.org. If you're like, hey, I'm thinking of being a group or one-on-one, or what the fuck, I like you, help me pick. And I'll be like, yes, I got you. And yeah, so I was teaching one of my groups, and we were talking, and each person had a certain amount of time, and we're going through it, and we're like, oh, fabulous. And one of my students was like, wait, Erica, hold on, what about you? And I was like, oh man, thank you. Like, thanks for letting me receive. And I was sharing with the group that something I've noticed because of this worthiness thing that's coming up right now, this deserving thing that's coming up, is and this is an old pattern, so I'm like, oh, she's back. Okay, hey girl, love ya. Let's chat. Let's have some lunch. What's going on? And the pattern is consistently finding the wrongness. And I don't mean finding like, oh, this sandwich sucks, like a yenta, like a complainer, though that's something too. But like finding the wrongness within myself, right? Like finding the wrongness within myself, and a situation, and consistently and constantly scanning for fixing. So Cliff Notes so I told my group this, and how it spurred was, a few weeks ago, I was going through, I always do a business audit of my business, and I just check in and I see like, hey E, how's business? And everything was good. Like, I was like, I'm pretty satisfied. Of course, there's more desires there, but, like a little bit more, maybe a little bit more speaking gigs, da-da-da. But overall, I was like, it's good. And my cute brain, immediately went into, no, yeah, I think you filled the paper out wrong. So there has to be something wrong. And one of my pod group members lovingly was like, so everything's going well within this area. I'm like, yeah. And that doesn't feel safe right now. And it's funny, I was talking to literally 2 clients this week, my one-on-ones, and we were talking about how I asked them, it's so cool how I'm so interconnected with my clients. It's such a privilege, and it's just so fun to be like, I'm with you, in this spot, and you're here, it's just really rewarding. But we were talking, and both of them in their own way explained it a little bit differently. But I asked them, do you feel worthy of good things? And they said no. Or / yes, but in small doses. Like, I can hold a quick experience, but it doesn't feel safe to hold good things. And I said, great, tell me more about that. And they said, I had a caretaker, or I had an experience where it wasn't safe to hold good things. Here's an example, making something up. Pretend, right? In your childhood, it felt threatening to take up space because you knew Aunt Sue. Aunt Sue. But we knew Aunt Sue would yell at us if we were loud and taking up space and in our laughter. So we got the messaging that radiance wasn't safe. For so many people, there's a fear, right? Owning our sexuality, owning our sensuality. There's a genuine fear of that's not fucking safe. So many of us have fears, real fears and real lived experiences that it's not safe being radiant, having ease, having pleasure. And so we talked about that. I've talked about that with my clients. And again, I'm going to consistently be unearthing this probably for forever. And why I'm bringing this up is this work is so much about undoing those patterns in our brain, right? Like, oh my God, wait, hold on. Like rewiring those neural pathways, but also creating safety in our body that we don't have a physical reaction when we receive something good. And it's like, get it off me. It's a 2-part series. It's an integration process. It really is a mind, body, soul, spirit learning. And why I bring that up is a few things. To take away some shame, right? Like this is a full body experience. And also and not just like hashtag promotion, because I anywhere you go, this is the power of community. This is the power of being held by an expert in this field. Because I think you would hear within me the importance, right? That this is not just, and so often I have people being like, well, I worked on my mindset, I must be broken. I'm like, babe, this is a full body, full experience, body, brain, soul. So you know the deal. Like I said earlier, if this is resonating, you're like, yeah, I do want to step into more worthiness, more aliveness, more pleasure. I'm here to support you. And this is actually, again, what I was saying with the phantom episode is that what I noticed, right, when I was telling them my group this, I said there's the pattern, the pattern is back of constantly looking for wrongness, constantly scanning for fixing, constantly being like, no, it can't be that easy. It can't be that easy. And again, I'm going through a lot of personal stuff right now. So it makes sense. My nervous system's a little hijacked, and that's okay. Like I have full permission. I'm like, yeah, babe. Mm-hmm. I'm not mad at myself for that. I understand why it's happening. It makes sense. So these old things are kind of on alert, and that's cool. Like I'm totally giving myself so much love through that. So this old pattern of consistently scanning for fixing or wrongness, it's up and alive. Cool. Got it. And so we were talking through the group, and I was like, right. And this is why I do the work. And what is the work? More than twofold, but the work is not only finding rightness within myself, right? That's why my clients, every time I always start a call with celebrations, it's purposeful because we could go right into the problem, right? So often in this world, we go right to the problem, which is appropriate sometimes because sometimes we need to be held in the problem, in the confusion, in the chaos. But I'm like, please hold. We will get there. Before we do, I want you to celebrate the shit out of yourself. I want you to, before we get into the stuff, let's ground into your rightness, your rock on, your self-love, your celebration, your boom, ba-da, da-da. You know what I mean? Like I always start with that. And that's a core belief in my practice. Great. And also finding rightness within our lives. This is a nuanced philosophy, so go with me. One of my teachers, I'm going to butcher the exact quote, but one of my teachers was talking about, Regina Thomas-Shower, by the way, this teacher. We're so obsessed, this culture is so obsessed with our problems. We're so problem focused. And there's why are we not pleasure focused? Go with me. Nuance. Like this is a nuance concept. And she also owned that too. And what I mean by this and what I want to pull apart in this quote, in this theory, is when it's appropriate, right? Like there's some situations where it's just devastation and it's grief and we're moving through the things. Great. Nuance. I want to put that disclaimer on. However, what I'm talking about is the moment to moment moments, the mundane, the waking up to take a shower to go to work, the getting in the car for carpool. You know what I mean? Like those moments, the mundane. We are so obsessed as a society at fixing ourselves, at fixing, at the wrongness, at picking apart, this is bad, this is this, this is this. And it really moves me of how can we get back to, hold on, I'm so obsessed with what's wrong, with what's bad, with what's broken. Can I get a little bit on board? I wouldn't even need to go full kickball change, but can I get a little bit more on board with what brings me joy, what brings me alive? And again, not from a place of bypassing, not from a place of avoidance. When we've moved through all that shit, right? When we've cleaned the vessel, when we've moved through the emotions, when we're kind of in a neutral, instead of going to obsessing with wrongness and badness and ba-ba-ba, can I get curious? I'm getting curious in my wrongness. Can I spend a little bit of time getting curious about my joy, my aliveness, my radiance? I always say to people, we say the work. It's what the fuck is the work? I mean, the work is so many things, but a huge component for me of the work is snapping back. It's human nature to get off of the trail, and we're supposed to get off the trail. That's par for the course, right? To wander off. It's our work to snap back, and no judgment on how long it takes to snap back, but snapping back. And that's, again, the importance of community, the importance of a coach, the importance of a therapist that helps us. Hey, babe, we're snapping back. And for me, snapping back means coming back into my center, locating myself, boom, seeing, hey, E, what do you need? Like I talked about in the beginning of the episode. What's your intuition saying? She was very clear. I was avoiding her. Locating myself, okay, how are you feeling? Ooh, my body's feeling like this. Interesting. Cool. What does it need? And my soul's feeling this. I'm emotionally feeling this. Great. How can we hold you? I'm feeling grief. I'm feeling overwhelmed. Great. Let's process that shit. I'm feeling okay, cool. Let's get curious about your turn on. Let's get curious about your radiance. Let's get curious about your pleasure. Does that make sense? So the snapping back, boom, the snapping back, because we all are going to get off the trail. The snapping back is coming back, locating ourselves, seeing what our soul, body, heart, spirit needs to get back to that place of alignment. Back to that place of truth, whatever that means for you, your aliveness, your radiance, your, oh, hot damn, this is my jam spot. How's that feeling? Really quickly, I want to voice this. And again, you know me, this is disclaimer on disclaimer on disclaimer with nuance and nuance and nuance. So many situations and circumstances, has genuinely victimized folks. Genuinely. So we're disclaimering the shit out of this. I am not talking about those situations. I am not. And that's a whole other conversation of how we can hold those types of shadows and be with people that have been in horrible situations where they are genuinely victimized. So when I talk about victim, I don't like to bring it up because I think so often people use that word loosely and throw it around. Where I'm that's not correct. You get where I'm going with this. So the victim that I'm talking about is kind of like our self-saboteur. The victim I'm speaking about is the victim who self-imposes. Does that make sense? Which we all have that in us. And again, really want to parse out the difference between situations that genuinely victimize us and when we're being cute and kinky. The victim I'm talking about is a little bit more playful. It's a little bit more self-saboteur. It's a little bit more, I'm being a victim. And we could lovingly play with it, right? We could lovingly be like, babe, you're being a little victim-y, my darling. It's that quote unquote victim, not real. You get what I'm saying? You know where I'm going with this. So that version of us, right? It's alive and well in all of us. And I've noticed over the last few months really going into, you know me, I'm always going into some type of deep journey, but really I've been really rocking the work recently really hard. And I've noticed my victim, again, my self-saboteur, the cute one that I could be like, babe, And I've had to create a relationship with her. I've had to have that like flirty conversation. And that flirty conversation is the snapback that I just talked about, right? Like the snap. Hey, baby, I know. It's horrible. Like I can get down with her and gossip. I could say, oh, unbelievable. But darling, you don't want to take that all on yourself. Come on. I have to flirt with her because otherwise and everyone has a different flavor profile, right? Like some people, some clients of mine are like, no, we like yell at my victim, like not yell at my victim, but like lovingly dom, where I'm like, come on, babe, get out of it. I hate that. That's not my flavor. I shut down with tough love. I need to be an 85-year-old woman smoking a cig, eating a bagel, being like, it's horrible. Oh my God. Oh, but honey. Like I know how I need to speak to my victim. I need to give her space. I need her to be seen. I'm like, I know, doll. Oh, I know. And then I need to flirt with her and say, oh, let me tell you something. I hear you. Babe, I hear it's terrible. And you don't need to be suffering, my darling. You don't need to be suffering. It's horrible. So like, I know how my victim likes to be spoken to. And again, sometimes it's different flavors, right? Sometimes different things are appropriate. But my invitation is, how do you want to flirt with that little self-saboteur part of you? And maybe it's not ready. And again, sometimes that a big blockage comes up for folks. So they're like, I don't fucking know. Again, that's where, hey, I'm here. Reach out to me. I'm happy to hold you or give you additional resources. But I'm curious, how do they want to be spoken to? How do they want to be flirted? Is it like, hey, babe, I need you more in line? Or is it like a mother? Like, hi, my darling. Hi, baby, I know, and you deserve better. Come on, baby. Again, mine, I don't know why. She's a yenta. We're gossiping, we're talking, we're doing the things, I ain't down. And it inspires me where I'm like, you know what? I don't want to stay in this. And that's my snapback where I'm like, thank you, Hilda. I don't know why Hilda's helping me, but I'm like, thank you, Hilda. You're right. Thank you for seeing me, right? Because I know my victim wants to be seen. And I'm like, thank you, Hilda. This situation does blow. And then I'm like, but Hilda said she's right. I don't want to stay in this suffering. So it's like, Hilda, you're right. I'm going to grieve about this. I'm going to journal about this. I'm going to use my tools about this. Wow. I need to throw a shit fit in this. And I can't stay in this suffering because it's not fucking helping me. So how can I snap back? Not from a place of bypass, not from a place of ignorance, not from a place of I'm going to avoid. No, I felt those things. I'm sad. I'm grieving. I'm in my victim-y. Wah. And then Hilda's right. How am I going to come back to my aliveness, my turn on, my truth? Even while the sadness is present, even while wow, this is a shit situation. How can I hold both? Because we can. We can hold both. Wow, this is disappointing. Sorry, just hiccuped at you. Disappointing. And I'm fucking not going to be victimized by this. Again, nuance in the victimization. You get what I'm saying. But I'm going to take my power back. This situation fucking blows. But let me tell you, I'm not going to fucking dampen my soul for this. I know it blows. I acknowledge it blows. I'm working the goddamn tools that it blows. And I'm going to get in community. I'm going to get with people that support me and remind me of my aliveness and my joy and my happiness and my and both can coexist. There could be both deep grief and processing, and also I'm with myself. I'm locating with myself. I'm here doing the dance. I can go on, but as I talk to you, I really booked myself solid today, and we're going to cut that shit out. We are going to cut it out. So my homework assignment for myself, right, is allowing more ease, allowing more places where I could land that feel soft and easy. I'm going to get excited that there's some stuff going right in my world, and I'm going to create safety that there's stuff going right. Let me fucking revel in that shit, right? Like I created and I worked so hard to enjoy that. So that's my homework assignments, right? Like noticing where I'm overbooking myself, noticing where I'm suffocating and purposely allowing myself not to relax and rest, right? I'm scanning for that. I'm celebrating like, yes, you created magic, baby. Revel, honey. Enjoy. Like I'm going to revel. I'm going to celebrate in my rightness in these situations. I'm going to, like the idea we said, not avoid, right? But instead of me scanning for what's wrong, what can I pick apart? Again, sometimes that's appropriate, but more often I'm going to lean towards, okay, baby, how can I come back to what's right? How can I find my aliveness? How can I focus more on my pleasure and my turn on? And again, still hold space for shit that needs to be worked through, still hold space for truths of situations, right? But keep coming back to myself, keep coming back and locating and holding myself deeply. So I hope today we talked about a shit ton of stuff, but I hope this brought up something good for you. I hope something we talked about a lot, right? Like ease and finding ourselves right and celebrating ourselves and flirting with our victim and coming to a place of rightness. And people play, holy shit, we talked about a lot of shit. So I always invite everyone post sessions and sometimes post episodes, just reflect what came up for you. And I'm curious, I'd love to hear, you could drop me a line at @WeTheLight_LLC on Insta. What came up for you? And how are you going to allow more ease into your life? How are you going to hold both what's the truth of what's going on and coming back to flirting with pleasure, coming back to flirting with yourself? How are you going to flirt with your victim? What flavor does it need? Does it need a Dom and like, hey, babe? Does it need a Yensa? Does it need also to come to the bagel shop with Erica? Does it need a softer voice? Like, what does it need to hold them, to see them, to say, I got you, babe. And hold on, baby. I'm going to pick something that's way more empowering, way more soothing, way more juicy and resourceful. I fucking love the shit out of you. And I cannot wait to talk to you soon. You're a badass. I love you. Bye. Thank you, seriously thank you so much for joining me on today's episode and on this podcast journey. And if you loved what we talked about today and you know another human who could definitely benefit from what was discussed, I would so appreciate if you would go ahead and share this podcast with them. Don't forget, hit subscribe or follow so you never ever miss an episode. And the great news is you can always follow me, my work, my blog, my podcast on my website at www.wethelight.org. And hey, remember, life is so much brighter when we shine. I'll see you next time.